you would, Minister.
So, in relation to Budget 2017, we have made no provision for additional pay restoration beyond the commitments already entered into under the Lansdowne Road Agreement. Budget 2017 has allocated €290 million for the implementation of the Lansdowne Road Agreement. An additional €10 million was allocated to the Department of Education and Skills for the implementation of a revised salary scale for new entrant teachers, as was recently agreed with teaching unions. However, the public service pay bill is a function of both pay rates and numbers, and in response to the critical need to support frontline service delivery, the estimate for gross pay in 2017 in the budget is €16.3 billion, which is €660 million more than the 2016 REV allocation of €15.7 billion. This includes the provision for the implementation of the Lansdowne Road Agreement, but also includes the provision for additional staff in 2016 for 6,100 additional staff. I'm conscious of the fact that there's little time left. I'll let the Deputy come back in at any point I've made.
Thank you. Minister, it's an interesting answer to a question I didn't fully get to ask you. And the reason I find it interesting is because you're well aware, and I know that there was a lot of questions asked of you already today about the ASTI and about the Gardaí, who are outside the Lansdowne Road Agreement. And it's my understanding that there are olive branches being put out to meet the Gardaí and some attempt to deal with the teachers' questions outside Lansdowne Road. So when you say that there's no provision made for any extra payment for people outside of Lansdowne, for workers outside of Lansdowne Road, then it would beg the question, why are you bothering talking to them at all? Because if they agree to come into the tent and say, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, we'll accept all the terms of Lansdowne Road, we'll continue to do supervisory duties for nothing, as we did until the 30th of June under the Haddington Road Agreement, and if the Gardaí decide to make some concessions to you, you have no extra money to pay them according to your own budgetary provisions. However, the fundamental and more important point remains that this government was well aware that there were groups of workers who remained outside Lansdowne Road and should have made provision to deal with that. Every trade union is entitled to a free vote and to have its own opinion on provisions for a certain deal, and the teachers in particular, the ASTI, have worked 36 hours for free per year as per the Haddington Road hours and are now being told by the government, we're going to isolate you, we're and we need to know how you're going to deal with this, because ultimately you are going to have to sit down and deal with the teachers.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. Of course, I recognise the right of any trade union to form a view in relation to their matters and vote accordingly in relation to any proposal that is put in front of them. But of course, in your analysis, you make no reference to all of those unions who are inside the Lansdowne Road Agreement. You name those who are outside. What about the over 20 unions who are inside the Lansdowne Road Agreement? What about the over 250,000 civil and public service members who are inside this agreement? We have obligations to them. I have to honour them. That's what's recognised in the Budget 2017 and the figures that I have available for them. So while I understand your need to focus on people who are outside of the agreement, we have to also acknowledge those who are inside the agreement, who voted to be inside the agreement. And what the Lansdowne Road Agreement has demonstrated, and I've demonstrated as Minister, is the ability that we have, through that agreement, to fund and deliver responses back to issues that members of unions raise. And that's why we have a proposal in relation to the AGSI and the TUI and the INTO that's been accepted by the TUI and INTO in relation to new entrant pay. It's also why we have a proposal in relation to the rent allowance for new entrants to An Garda Síochána.
Thank you, Minister. Your final response.
Yeah, Minister, it's absolutely nothing to do with my need. And if I wanted to ask you a question about those inside the Lansdowne Road Agreement, that's exactly what I've asked you. What I have asked you is for how you make provision for those outside Lansdowne Road, and you rightly acknowledge the right of every trade union to vote according to their beliefs. And I will remind you, as it's been done before, that the members of the TUI and the INTO did not get to ballot on the new arrangement. It was the leadership of those unions who accepted the deal, not the membership. Unlike the membership of the Garda unions and unlike the membership of the ASTI, they have clearly rejected the constraints of the Lansdowne Road Agreement. My question to you is, we are facing major strike issues with Gardaí and teachers. At some point, you're going to have to sit down and resolve them. I'm asking you what provision you made in the budget to do so, and you're telling me you've made none. So I'm asking you, therefore, why bother talking to them if you've no provision to settle the issues that they have with Lansdowne Road?
Minister, your final response.
Thank you, Cahir. Look, Deputy Paul Murphy was in here earlier on saying that he believed that it was the right thing that strike action take place. And I know who I'm speaking to, Deputy, and what I also know is I'm responding back to the question that you put to me. And the question that you put to me was in relation to wage restoration. And of course, what is absent in any part of the view that you've put here in the Dáil is recognition of the fact that we have a large number of members of the public and civil service who are inside the Lansdowne Road Agreement. But of course, Deputy, I know you have no interest in looking to acknowledge any kind of progress, just like you have no interest in acknowledging the fact that a huge amount of engagement has gone on with the ASTI, with the GRA and with the AGSI, and will continue to look to put in place an agreement that is affordable for all, to do our best to make sure that the kind of disruption that this government does not want to see happen does not happen.
Thank you. The Dáil is suspended until 5:18.